Evening and welcome to another Monday night, another edition of the Magpie Circle podcast. And for once, we hope there will be some football for us to preview at the end of this week. Notts head down to Crawley, weather permitting, although there is the Big Four underway now on Saturday afternoon. But I guess as a lot of the emphasis on tonight's show and your thoughts and views, which will always be much appreciated, are on our activity in the transfer window so far. I'm tempted to say 2.5 in. I am told the Belshaw thing, James Belshaw, 35-year-old keeper from Harrogate, started out in Notts' academy, went to America, came back, Bristol Rovers, Harrogate, and now to finish his career at Notts County. That deal is just waiting to be announced. Harrogate confirmed the arrival of a loan keeper this afternoon. So forgive us, we will talk a little bit about James Belshaw as if he has signed. If he hasn't, that's another massive own goal I've scored. Won't be the first, won't be the last. But we have definitely signed Tamworth winger Beck Ray Enoru, depending on the pronunciation there, and also the young centre-half from Crystal Palace, Luke Brown. Lots of thoughts and views from the flock. We'll be hearing the thoughts of Mark Stallard very shortly. Thank you, as always, to our official partners, JH Accountants, the Trent Navigation over the road, and the Big Shed. Okay, before we go to the thoughts and views of the flock, January transfer windows not always met with a great degree of optimism by Notts fans. Looking at it overall, we're a third of the way into the transfer window, I think is the best way to put it, Stel. I think we can safely work on the basis that we do have a keeper in James Belshaw. How would you sum it all up? What are your thoughts so far?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to really quantify anything, isn't it? We've got two unknown quantities largely come in, haven't we, in Luke Brown? If we put James Belshaw to one side just for a second, the actual two lads that have been announced, young lads, inexperienced, no league experience, as it were. So it's a case of watch and wait and see. In their terms, there's obviously something about the both of them that the data model likes, that Notts like. But we'll wait and see. I won't make a judgment on them. I think the lad Enoru, I think he's coming with a little bit of a murmur because of the pace that he's got, which is good. I've been saying for a while about we need a bit of pace, or I would like to see us have a little bit more actual pace in the team. But obviously with pace, you've got to have quality as well. And we'll wait to see whether he can make that step up from Tamworth in the National League North to the Football League. So big opportunity for him, though. And probably it's got to be said that they're both signings for the future, aren't they? Both, I think, have been given 2.5-year deals, Luke Brown and Oru. So yes, obviously they'll go straight into the squad, but I don't know as if they're both immediate starters. I would be surprised if they were. So signings for the future. So in terms of actual signings at the minute as a transfer window, I would say, yeah, yet to be convinced in terms of, we've not got anybody with any experience or anybody that you would imagine is going to walk straight into the first team selection, you would think.
Okay, we'll come to James Belshaw in a minute. Let's just get a quick selection from the flock. Evening, chaps, from Martin Blaney. What is your response to our two latest signings? I'm not too impressed, he says. Well, Stell's given us some opening comments there, Martin. Robert Minister from Down Under. Not much football to talk about, so I'd better talk about the cricket down here. Bethel and Tog look like good prospects for the future. And have we got Belshaw coming in, says Rob from, I think it's a little place called Juneau, somewhere in Australia. Richard Terry, hoping you've been saving the announcements of new signings for this evening. What it is to be in the know. And then hopefully We will soon become as good as Mansfield. Oh, dear me, that kind of puts us, shows you where we've been in the last few years, doesn't it? Jurgen Pye. I see Andy Cook has gone to Grimsby on loan until the end of the season. Would have been good for us. Football fan Mark. Luke Williams, 4 points off the playoffs in League One. And Stuart Maynard's top of the National League. Jonathan Hammocks. Well, the way I see it, we're a very disgruntled group at the moment. Doesn't help that Mansfield have got through to round 4. I hope we're not becoming jealous. Essie Kent, evening all. Did you hear the Wrexham chant to Forest on Saturday, Friday night even? Yes, we all heard it. You just beep Notts County. Very good, the Wrexham faithful, for that chant. First and only time I've wanted Wrexham to win. Part 2, Jonathan Hammocks. You look at Lincoln City, Burton, Peterborough and others. I know we've just got to concentrate on ourselves. For me, got to get something out of Crawley. Sam Draper, hi all. If Belshaw comes in, which is seemingly likely, then I think we just need one more attack-minded creative player and a striker. 5 signings would be enough, in my opinion. Part 3 from Jonathan. It's not helped not having a game recently. I'm still trying to stay positive. There's a hell of a lot of points to play for. If we don't go up, crowds will drop. Jurgen Pye, we don't seem to have shipped any players out yet as well. That's something Stel mentioned before the window opened. The only outward movement so far has been Manchester United recalling their young central defender, Sonny El Joffrey. Evening from Paul Huskerson and from Ian Hayward. I have to stress, this is total gossip. I don't like doing it, but I have heard it from more than one source this afternoon. Possibility of an outgoing move for Kellen Gordon, possibly Crawley. Clearly, if there was anything in that, I'm sure that would be kind of suspended or whatever until after Saturday's game. Hello, says Karen Knight. Adam Kent. Evening, Paul and Stel. Could you wish Essie Kent a belated happy birthday for last Thursday? I bought Oldham away tickets as a surprise, but look how that ended up. Obviously, a very happy birthday to Essie Kent.
Yeah, happy birthday.
There you go. How many? Dare I ask, Adam? Dare I ask?
Oh, you don't ask.
21 again. Norfolk Pie, evening all. I do think fans need to be realistic. It seems clear the club takes the view that if promotion happens, then that's a bonus. Oh, dear me. I would say that's a pessimistic rather than realistic view. Well, actually, it might be realistic, but crikey. You try and take ambition out of a football club, it don't go very far. But there will be no big financial push to achieve it. Ian Cook's here, our show favourite. Hello, Ian. 12 days in. I suspect he's not going to be very happy before I've read this one still. 12 days in, and we've brought in one for the future, one part-timer with a 36-year-old goalkeeper coming this window. Stephen Newton, evening from Stephen. Richard Sharp. Ruben Rodriguez on loan would be amazing. Just the type of player we're missing. Would put 2,000 on there. We're getting 12,000 then. Not played much in Brazil and their season has finished. Sure, it was Richard Montague that brought him in. I read somewhere that Ruben is not going back to fulfill the second year of his contract in Brazil, but don't take that as gospel. So if that was to be true, Ruben then would be looking, I assume, to get a club either in Europe, maybe Portugal, or again back in England. Royston, I'm not too sure we're serious about promotion. Last season, the board did little. Same again this window. Other teams strengthening their squads, going all out for it. We need more proven experience. Does Jabala, anyone else feel like everyone else is making statement signings? Royston, we were 1 point from going top not long back. Now we're 12 and scrapping for a playoff spot. spot on. Richard Elvian. Harrogate have signed their keeper on loan. JB announcement must be imminent, says Richard Elvin. I believe it is. Daz Jabala, the owner's goal was to improve on last season's finish under Maynard. Anyone else think this is less likely? I hope we keep Martin Patterson on next season, even if we don't improve on last season. Evening from Tim Watchorn. I will save my verdict till the window closes. Let's concentrate on Crawley. Charlie Capewell, come on, Paul, give us some Belshaw news. Well, look, I'm saying he's joined, all right, and it's just not been announced. Famous last words. Rich Hawksworth, evening all, an old school friend of mine. That would be the posh suburb of Wollerton, then, I presume, Richard. Does the commentary for a special feed for blind Crawley supporters. He has asked me to join him in the press box. There you go, Rich. Commentary duties. You'll be replacing Stell next. He sent it twice just to emphasise it. And he adds, yes, I may need to introduce myself to Stell to get some summarising tips. Lippy Jane Paul, you said 3 signings were sorted before the transfer window. Are any of the ones signed any of those 3? If you count Belshaw, Lippy, 2 of the 3. Didn't know that we were signing a centre half. Right, we'll take a little break. There's thousands of them. We'll get through them all, don't worry. Stell, I guess it's a combination of no football, and as you said to me just before we came on air, when we did actually see some Notts County football, we probably wish we hadn't. And then we're watching kind of 1 or 2 other clubs, as we always thought they might, make some bigger name signings. We talk a lot about, or some people will say this player is brilliant, fantastic, he's going to hit the ground. Others, he's one for the future, etc., etc. For me, and you've touched on this, the one person's opinion that really matters to me, more so than a Richard Montague or the brothers, is Martin Patterson in terms of us getting promoted this year. And you've kind of alluded to this already. It's going to be interesting. We will find out how ready or how important Martin Patterson thinks these players are by the amounts of minutes these guys get.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something we've looked at from the summer window, isn't it? The 10 signings that came in, how many of them actually started and started the game? So, and I think we had it at about 40%, didn't we? Last time I sort of checked. And that includes obviously Kelleroos, who by de facto as the only senior goalkeeper is going to play every game, and the fact that the other goalkeeper was signed, Harry Griffiths, so one of them is going to play, so there's going to be a new goalkeeper in anyway. So I suppose that sort of evens itself out. But yeah, I mean, it all comes down to you bring players in to strengthen for 2 reasons. You're looking to strengthen the club, so you can sign players with a longer term view. But in January, maybe that you want something as a quick fix, don't you? And that maybe opens the door more to loan signings potentially sometimes than permanent, because if somebody's available permanently in January, that you've either got to buy them out of a contract or they're a free agent, and you'd then be questioning why nobody signed them up anyway. So it's always difficult. But I similarly, I think they've tried to get business done. I do think they've got to get players out the door. And interesting news. I've not seen anything about Kellen Gordon, but Crawley are trying to reform the band, aren't they? They've signed Danny Laorsi and Clyde Lawless, players that have played under Scott Lindsay before when they got promoted out of the division. So he's brought them back in. Ironically for Saturday's opponents, and they've brought about 5 other signings in as well for all various reasons. But they lost 10 on. Well, no, sorry, they're not won for 10 games in the league, so they needed a change. We'll come on to talking about Crawley in a bit, I'm sure. But yeah, in terms of signings, that is the only way to tell. If you've got the synergy between the head of recruitment and the manager, you're bringing players in that are going to play in the first team. And okay, you might bring in some younger lads or inexperienced lads, hoping that they hit the ground running. but really with an eye to a bit of development in where they're going to be, maybe for next season, something like that. But I think in January, you're always looking for somebody that's going to come in and make a difference now. And that's the one signing I don't think we've got yet. The positive you can say is we've still got Dennis and Jatta, speculation about them going. But you would like to see, well, I would certainly like to see a couple of signings that can come in and make a difference now. And, James Belshaw might well be one who can do that in goal. But in terms of outfield players, I'd like a couple that could come in and make a difference for the second half of the season that we've got left to play, because there is everything to play for. And yes, Bromley have had a great run and put a bit of distance between them and us, but we're only 4 points out of them automatic places. So there's a lot of the season to go for. Everything's up for grabs. Yes, we're all a little bit on a doom and gloom spiral because we haven't played for a bit, and we've got the reminder of that Accrington performance as the last game. So that's been left to fester for a bit. So we're hoping that there'll be some good news in this transfer window. But again, sometimes you have to get players to sort out deals going out to allow you to free up the budget to announce things coming in. Kellen Gordon be on a decent wage here, or players of that ilk. So if you're looking for them to go, you've got to make sure their agents and everything's got contracts agreed and done for the domino effect to kick in for us to hopefully then knock one over the line at our end for an incoming. So we'll wait and see till the end of the month. But at the minute, it looks more, signings for the future that you hope can come and have an impact now, but predominantly they're signings for the future, I would think.
Greta Maxwell is a positive mood. We haven't conceded a goal since January the 1st, he says. Anthony Thomas. So do we think we need a striker to come off the bench? Massively needed versus Chesterfield and Accrington for me. Ollie Pearce, Cheek, a proven finisher. Ian Cooksey. Pearce has just signed another contract, he says, and we should have gone for Cheek 5 years ago. I do, to be honest with you, I suspect a lot of clubs have thought about Michael Cheek. He is still there. He is still there. I watched a bit of Tranmere, wasn't it? Tranmere Bromley on Saturday, and it was quite funny. The Tranmere commentators, at one point, he was obviously getting frustrated when Michael Cheek scored his second. He says, I don't even know where Bromley is. Where's Bromley? In his thick Merseyside accent. I thought, crikey, there's nothing like a bit of prep, is there? And the other one said, well, I think it's somewhere near London. Talk about knowledge, eh? Talk about knowledge. But Bromley go serenely on, don't they? Average height 6'5.5". Colin Metcalf. I pay my season ticket money to watch us this season. Signings for the future don't do it for me. What about now? It's not good enough. A striker and a quality number 10 minimum is what I expect. Kay says uninspired by the transfer window is an understatement. Unless Notts pull something special out the bag, we will not be promoted. The squad doesn't have enough quality. Anthony Thomas, as well as a third striker, brackets Traore needs a loan move. We are missing a Ruben / Crawley number 10. Crawley's gotten from being pantomime villain to, I'd take him back now. Quite funny, really. Not going to get a better striker in than Andy Cook, says Michael Fido. Richard Lord, my main concern is there is no news on outgoing players. This is a point that Stella's raised, who are surplus to requirements. Can players refuse to go out on loan if it's offered? Short answer, Richard, yes, they can. That's when you talk about bomb squads and managers trying to make it as difficult as possible to try to push them out of the door. Ian Cooksey picks up on Stell's point. Crawley seem to be getting their playoff winning squad together, having re-signed several former players. I'd take Cheek all day long, says Anthony Thomas. Don't think he's an option over Andy Woodman's dead body, I would suspect. Essie Kent, thank you for the shout out, guys. 2 kisses, but doesn't reveal the age. Chris Gosling. Inoro ticks all the boxes when you look at attributes missing within the squad. Hopefully this is a sign that we are looking to correct the failings of the summer window. Get a creative 10 in next. Down the gym, and there's all sorts of people at my gym, as you know, Stel. So I had a good chat with Pedro's lad. Jordan Richards, who was on the books at Notts, and he's at Boston at the moment, managerless Boston after they surprisingly got rid of Graham Coughlin at the weekend. And I was talking to Jordan, and I said, do you know much about Inoru? And he said, yeah, we played him twice. He said his view was very rapid, very rapid. He said he thinks he is definitely capable and has the attributes to make the step up. Because let's not kid ourselves, it's a big step up from being not quite full-time at Tamworth in the National League to moving up to League Two, and how quickly you make that transition. He said, yeah, he thinks absolutely good enough to be in League Two, thinks he's a winger. But interestingly, we did have a bit of a debate about winger as opposed to wing back. I think your point about minutes, Stel, I think of those two signings, I think he has a significantly higher chance of being involved in a squad, because you've often talked, haven't you, about stretching defenders. We don't have real pace, and it would appear this guy is a speedster, but as a winger, he's not necessarily a wing back, and you don't see us necessarily changing the way we line up.
No, I don't. I'm going to mention to you off air, Dan, before we start. I don't see us changing the formation for a lad who's coming from Tamworth with no league experience.
Yeah.
To be completely, respectful to him, but I don't see that happening. Another bit I see is the fact that, I say Tamworth are part-time. I believe he's not played full-time football ever. So I think it'll take him a while to get up to his fitness levels, up to where Martin Patterson would want him, and obviously up alongside the rest of the squad. Now, so what I'm getting from that is he's been brought in because he's got that speed, got that outright pace, and hopefully a bit of quality as well. He's got experience of competitive football. National League North is competitive. So whether, like I say, so to my mind, he's been brought in maybe to be an option off the bench rather than a starter. Come on, that's 20 minutes. If we maybe need a bit of pace or whatever, he's an option that maybe we don't have already in the squad at the minute. I don't see him starting. And again, has he played the wing back role particularly? Because he's not going to play as an out and out winger for us, because we don't play out and out wingers. And again, I don't see us changing the formation of the team just because we've brought one in from Tamworth. So we hope he does well. We hope he finds his feet immediately. And the same for Luke Brown, who's more of a defensive player. But yeah, I don't see either of them. Of course, they're going to be in and around the squad, but I don't see either of them being immediate starters. So it's about finding positions, finding where you're going to play, and then earning the right. They're there to add competition for places. That's exactly. It's all right me saying that they're maybe not here for now, for the future, but they won't see it that way. They'll want to come in and show what they can do and want to displace somebody that's in the team. So absolutely, that's what they've got to aim for, personally. But at the minute, that various reasons, particularly with Enora, and you probably say the same about Luke Brown. He's been playing in a sort of academy under 21 football. So is he going to be at the required level for men's football? We don't know exactly where they're going to be at when they come in. And Martin Patterson, we know, likes a hard-working team. So I would imagine they're going to be squad players to start with, at least.
So if you're Martin Patterson right now, 10 days in, are you happy with the current situation, or are you champing at the bit to have more options that you can put in play straight away? Because let's be realistic, Martin Patterson needs to get Notts a promotion, or at least to be in the playoffs for his own CV. And we all know how managers operate. They live for the here and now, because there's no other way they can do it, because managers are not given time by owners anyway.
No.
The reality is, if you don't get results, but you sign players for the future, the owners won't say, "Oh, well, we've signed players for the future, so we don't need to get results here and now." You know, as our Stuart Maynard last year was a playoff, but got removed.
Yeah, look, you know, there's not a manager out there that doesn't want an extra 3 or 4 players if they can have them.
But
You know,
I get that.
all,
We're talking about players that can have an impact
yeah.
this season. So, given the previous history of the types of players that Notts have signed specifically in the last 2 January transfer windows.
Yeah, I look, he will want players that can come in and improve them immediately. You know, and everyone at Notts will. That's what they'll
Yeah.
be working for. The fact that, like I say, I'm saying these are probably more with an eye to long term. These two that have been brought in and both been given 2.5-year contracts with an option. I think both of them have got an option that might be the club's option. I don't know, but both of them will be brought in with a view of can they come in and make a difference sometime during that contract, and can we make profit on them, if you like, by either moving them on or they come in ideally and be regular first team starters. So that's why they're brought in. It's not a case of you sort of have to balance the budget a little bit, but I'm sure there will be an explicit conversation between Martin and Richard Montague and whoever else is involved to say, look, yeah, we're bringing these players in because we think longer term there's value there, but that doesn't impinge on anything we've spoken about in terms of bringing in, you know, potential starters for the here and now. Now, again, we speak about the reasons why, you know, and Richard Montague said about they wanted to get business done quickly if possible. But obviously, sometimes it isn't possible because as of the domino effect of people waiting to get close to the transfer window ends. You can bump up your wage packet. You can bump up your demands as clubs get a little bit more desperate, a little bit more twitchy. You know, so it's hard. You want to get it all done on January the 1st, of course you do. But if players are in demand and they've got maybe options and maybe things to look at, and they can play 1 or 2 clubs off against each other, then you have to be part of that bidding auction, bidding bit, and you have to wait your time, bide your time a little bit. It's frustrating because obviously we want to hear 5 brilliant new signings straight away, but unfortunately that's not reality. And you can go through all the clubs that have signed players and look at you'd look at them individually. What is the scenario of it? So we've mentioned Andy Cook going to Grimsby. You know, you'd look at that, go great signing for Grimsby, player that has been there before, knows where the goal is, experienced striker, and you go, and some people might go, well, we'd have him here. Would we? Yes, we'd love to have him in the squad. He'd be a great option off the bench, but on the wages that he's going to be on, you know, is he going to get a start? Is he going to displace Jatta? Is he going to displace Dennis? You know, and you can come in and you've got 3 senior strikers there. Potentially, they're not all going to play, and that can create problems. So we all want experienced players that are proven, this, that, and the other. But sometimes it can cause problems. So you have to look individually at each case. You know, Orsi and Lolos are the 2 that have gone back to Crawley, haven't they? The attacking players. And again, you look at them and go, well, they're available, aren't they? Because of what's happened since they left Crawley. They've never replicated the sort of form and goal scoring and, you know, quality that they had there in that season where they got promoted. So sometimes that's a deal that's easily done for them. And geographically as well, you have to think about players. You sometimes fishing in a smaller pond because players don't want to move too far in mid-season. If you're only being given potentially a 3 or 4 month loan or a 6-month contract, as we did with Charlie Whittaker and go last season. So it's a difficult time to do business, unfortunately, because of the market forces that are dictating it.
Okay. Steve Silver, not impressed by the transfer window, he says. Need to be signing experienced players, hopefully a striker and a goalkeeper incoming before the end of the week. Anthony Thomas, for me, we need to move Cotter, Roos, Hinchy and Traore on and give Jarvis and the young keepers a loan to make funds for a 10 and a striker. Chris Gosling, we have great strikers who've been very efficient with limited service. Get that final third sorted, and we can compete in the next half of the season. Jurgen Pye, would Notts fans want James Belshaw if he wasn't a Notts fan? Chris Gosling, think we're tied to Hinchy as he's played for 2 clubs now this season, which is a good point. Gary Phillips, a bit late to the party. Any truth in the rumour that Gordon going back to Crawley? Do you think there will be any others? It's certainly something that's doing the rounds. We mentioned earlier in the show, Gary, it's something I've heard as to validity, and certainly we know that Crawley are being very active, and Scott Lindsay is trying, if you like, to regroup some of those players that got the club promoted not too long ago into League One under his stewardship. Gary Phillips, we need another Scott Robertson type player, and albeit a bit of a luxury, another option up front, something different. Fraser Dodds, where do we think Inoru will play? Seems like an out winger, not a wing back. We don't play wingers. That's a point that we developed probably just after you'd raised that on the message board. Adam Kent, Belshaw has looked good when I have seen him. Rue's rumoured to be one of the higher earners at Notts. Joseph Crabtree, I wonder if we change to a 4-2-3-1 might be the best way to get the best out of Jody Jarvo and the new boy from Tamworth. Steve Silver reiterates Stell's points. We are only 4 points off the autos. Chris Gosling would favour a change in formation, though I'm not necessarily that sure or it will happen. Ian Cooksey, Didsey is on the bench at Anfield tonight. Look, it hasn't been announced yet, Stel, but let's just talk a little bit about James Belshaw. Is it good that there is now competition for Cal Roos with a goalkeeper that it would certainly appear that Martin will be prepared to play, given there has been a fairly strong resistance to playing any of the 2 young keepers so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've been talking about James Belshaw, but whoever it is, a senior goalkeeper to come in to push Kelleroos. I think, we've spoken about Kelleroos a lot at the start of this season for various reasons, but I think if that experienced goalkeeper was already in there, I think he'd have had some game time, wouldn't he? I think Martin would have had the option to change it. And maybe just to take Cal out the firing line a little bit, but
yeah,
but it's that competition for places, and again, no disrespect to Harry Griffiths and Milai Pirot, the young lad, but obviously Martin hasn't felt that they're quite ready to go in when Kelleroos has made a few mistakes, few ricks this season, as we all know, that he's not felt he's had backup that he could change that, or doesn't feel he's needed to change that for whatever reason. Now, I imagine that with James Belshaw coming in, he's a senior player. He's coming in to play. He's not coming in to sit on the bench like we've spoken about Honora and we've spoken about Luke Brown, who might be sort of more long-term projects. The fact of having a goalkeeper in who is, ready to go, oven ready, as you might say, that I'd be very surprised if he doesn't come in and start. I'd be very surprised if that was the case. So we'll wait and see. He might have to do a game or 2 on the bench, but I'd be very surprised if he's not been brought in to actually start, because he's got that experience. And if he's 35, James Belshaw, you don't come anywhere, even if it is the club you support and your hometown club, you don't come there to be happy to sit on the bench. So I would imagine he's coming to start.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The pull of Notts County. You had David McGoldrick wanting to end his career here and having a big affinity with the club, supported the club, came through the academy, moved on for his best years. And it's a not dissimilar situation with James. I do know that he was keen to do a not dissimilar deal 3 years ago after Notts got promoted. I think he was at Bristol Rovers at the time, and I think he made overtures to Notts about taking a wage cut while he was at Bristol Rovers and coming here. Notts didn't kind of take that any further and went for Aidan Stone. So we're now in a situation 2.5 years on where it now looks as if that deal has been completed, and he comes in. I mean, is it a positive or negative, or does it make any difference whatsoever as a professional footballer? And you would have experience of this as a 16-year-old, to play for the hometown club with which you have an affinity.
Look, I don't think it's a massive. It's obviously good for the player. It's obviously good. It's a good look, isn't it? It's a good look to have a player that is playing on the pitch that is a genuine fan of the club that you're playing for. You
Yeah,
know that the fans will take to him for that for no other reason. You know, so but again, like anything in football, when you're a footballer, you will then be judged by what you do on the pitch. It's all right having, he's one of our own and all that sort of thing.
yeah,
If he chucks two or three in the first two or three games, he won't be getting that sung, will he? So, it's a nice thing. Obviously, if you can play for the club that you supported and things like that, then that's a great feeling. As long as it doesn't inhibit your performance levels, as long as it doesn't become too much, or as long as it's not too big for you. I don't imagine he's experienced, obviously. So, it's a minor thing, but I think it's a good thing because it will buy him. It gives him credit in the bank, doesn't he? Without it, before he's even played a game. So hopefully he can come in and do a job. As can the other two lads that come in, and maybe we'll find out somewhere that Honoru and Brown will claim to be lifelong Notts fans as well. But I doubt that. But yeah, like I say, it can't do him any harm, can it? Coming to play at Meadow Lane, somewhere he's familiar with, because he'll have been to games. So I think from that perspective, it would be a good signing. For more than one reason.
okay. Robert Greensmith. I'm really surprised Ness hasn't been in the starting lineup recently. I like Matty Platt, but not bringing the ball out from the back. Ian Cooksey. I hope Onuru is more Kel Roberts than Lewis Knight. Chris Gosling, the left wing back, has the benefit of being backed up by Bedo, who takes much of the defensive responsibilities down that flank. Michael Fido, of course, a Hayden Hollis, former Notts trainee, played quite a few games for us. It would have been a teammate, as Michael Fido points out, of Onuru at Tamworth. Chris Gosling, I'd start with Ness every day of the week, he says. Sam Draper, next couple of signings have to be oven ready League Two players. Hope Rob McDonald is back to fitness. He was our best player before his injury, says Kay. Ian Cooksey, if Gordon does make a move, could Cerula also go back with him? As we have a lot of wide men at the club. Chris Goddard, if Notts are signing players on 2.5-year contracts, do they see League One potential in these players? Ray Newton, we will not sign anyone of note besides Belshaw, he says. Chris Gosling, we can't say it's a weak league when Salford and MK are reportedly paying not far short of £500,000 for players. Norfolk Pie, can I ask Paul and Stell? Hang on, I've nearly lost it. Do you think the club will actually manage to bring an impact player in, or will it be more of the same? Colin Metcalf, I'm not understanding signing players for the future in January if they don't play much now, and we are serious about promotion. They would have to make the step up to League One in one go. Sam Draper, Stell is right. Cook wouldn't come to us with Jatta and Dennis here. He would want to be the main man, which he is very likely to be at Grimsby. James Moore, Belshaw has always been a tidy keeper for League Two and has also done it at League One. He will be a solid upgrade. The fact he's a Notts fan is a bonus for all. Ian Cooksey makes a point. Do you think that last summer's window is affecting this one in terms of budget? Yeah, that's an interesting point, Stowe. We hear a lot about finance. We've heard from Richard Montague. We heard from the brothers earlier this year that this is a record budget that they're paying for players since they arrived here. So therefore, it is the biggest, if you're comparing apples with apples, of the 3 seasons we've spent in League One. You've mentioned on many occasions we have a big squad. No two ways about it. We have a lot of players. You've also made the point that you felt players needed to be sold, moved on, for there to be, middle level, shall we say, recruitment. Do you think the brothers are going to try and keep this on an even keel with budget? And did we do an awful lot of our budget and use some of the discretionary spend up in August?
Well, that's a question that only those inside the club will know, won't they? When Roberto Gagliardi was, head of recruitment in the summer, you bring in the players in, the 10 players that came in the summer, only they will know the sort of the wages that they were put on. So like I say, we're told that this is the biggest wage budget since we've been back in the league, 3rd year in League Two, that it's competitive. It's in the playoffs, if you like, if you ranked everybody in terms of salary. Now, I think one thing we can say is that the brothers will make sure that the club stays within the parameters that they want to do things. In terms of, they aren't going to go out there and pay probably £500,000 for a player. If say MK Dons are in the market with a couple of other clubs that will do that, we're probably not. We're looking in a different pool, but they are always looking for value, and that doesn't mean to say we're looking on the cheap. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think we're looking for value in terms of, it might not be somebody that's £500,000, but it's somebody that fits the model of what we, or the way they try and do things at the club. Can that be frustrating? Absolutely. But they could also argue that they went outside that model for the likes of David McGoldrick 2 seasons ago. Obviously his wages were probably going to be outside of what we normally pay, but he just scored 20 in League One, and absolutely he was a sort of an ad hoc signing, if you like, maybe something that came out the blue that they weren't expecting, and it came. And they could then turn around and go, well, we added other players as well. It didn't get us promoted. So they could also look at that and go, well, buying a name, and I don't think any of us could say we're going to attract anybody with a name like David McGoldrick from a couple of years ago. We're not going to attract somebody who was scored 20 in League One at the minute, and bring them in. And we did that, and we still didn't get promoted. So they can turn around and go, well, we tried that. We were no more successful with it than we are doing it a different way. So look, I like everybody would like to see a couple of absolute tried and tested players come in, tried and trusted players come in, as close as you can get to, because again, let's not forget, it's always a gamble bringing players in. You don't know if they're going to work. Somebody who's been a really good player, had a good career, can come somewhere and it just doesn't work for whatever reason. So there's no such thing as a surefire hit. When we're playing Championship Manager and saying, well, I'd sign him and I'd sign him, we all bring them in, and they would obviously be amazing if we actually could bring them in. But we'll never get to quantify that. We will never see it. So it is difficult. That is why I will always give them, having been in football, a little bit of leeway, because it is not a black and white sort of binary science that, well, you bring him in and we just spend and we've had this sort of conversation and debate. If they just spent another £500,000, we reckon that would guarantee us promotion. Well, I don't think it would, because there is no way of guaranteeing promotion. Would it give you a better chance? Yes, I think it would, but it doesn't guarantee it. And what it does guarantee is you've spent £500,000 on the budget that's got to come from somewhere. So again, it's always difficult. It's easy spending other people's money. It's always difficult when they've got a model and a way of doing it that, again, we will all judge the whole club and everything by the results of where it ends up, and people will maybe lose jobs because of we don't get where we're intending to be. I know there's been people questioning, well, is there real intent to get promoted? Yes, I think there is, because I can't see any benefit of not getting promoted, because they will know as a business model, if it stagnates, if Notts County stagnate in League Two for too many more seasons, then the crowds will drop, sponsorship opportunities drop. The money that you get in League Two is not as good as the money that you get in League One. Yes, when you go up, the salaries have to increase as well. But as a business, Notts County becomes more valuable the higher up the league table you go. So can't quite get on board with this. They don't want promotion. They want promotion, but they're not willing to spend above the parameters that they've set. That's how I see it, unless they see something that they see as value for money, which they'll get money for. Like I say, these lads that have maybe come in now, but I'm hoping, and I'm fairly convinced that that's not the end of the business for this January transfer window. I'm sure they're trying to do these tried and trusted players, but again, if they're in demand and there's a queue of people trying to sign them and get the ear of the agent, like I say, it's not always in the player's best interests to say yes on January the 1st. You might make yourself a bit more money if you say yes on January the 30th. It's just the way the market is.
Agreed. James Moore, it wouldn't surprise me if Jody Jones left the club if someone came in for him. Richard Hawksworth, I've got no problem with signing the lad from Tamworth if complemented by signings who can have an immediate impact. Sam Draper, the real shame is Luca getting injured early on. His assistant creativity would have definitely got us a few more points on the board. Richard Hawksworth, I'm afraid the owners will not have a leg to stand on if they do not sign players who can increase our chances of promotion this season. Pythagorean, strongly rumoured that Crewe were interested in Gordon last August. Well, he's still here at the moment, Pythagorean. In Nora, says James Moore, looks a real prospect. I had a look at the comments online and their fans were very generous in their praise for him and unanimously pleased he's got an opportunity and not moving forward. Chris Gosling, if you want to see what Iniro is capable of, just watch the highlights of the game from Spurs in the FA Cup. Gordon and Cerulli were brought in as they are experienced wing-backs, says Gary Phillips. They can defend and attack. This did make us better defensively, but took away from our attack a little. Are we going now into Moniz mode again? Richard Elvin, will the 3-week break from games have aided or hindered us as we move to our next game on Saturday? Greza Maxwell, didn't we pay back in the day 750 grand for Tony Agana from Sheffield United? If we would have signed his strike partner Brian Dean, we would have been mid-table in the Prem. SC Kent, before Christmas with a chance of top of the league, we were saying Martin Patterson spoilt for choice. What's changed? 90 minutes against Accrington didn't help, and 4 games without a win, I think, is what's changed, SC. James Moore, something about 7-game ban for Ollie Clark. Not seen anything of that. He's taking the best player from a team in the league below, not tried and tested, says Chris Gosling. Get them on their way up rather than catch them on their way down. Martin Blaney, history shows, other than Jatta, our transfers in January have been predominantly poor. Ian Cooksey, do you remember in the mid-70s, the accusation of they don't want promotion was a common claim made against Jack Dunnett? Indeed, I do. I used to bang on about it as a teenager, a pupil at Greenwood-Dale Comp, and I was always very supportive of Jack, my local MP and my dad. He used to send the players out to canvass for him in Bakersfield and Sneinton. Used to send them out. Can Mr. Dunnett rely on your vote? Brian Stubbs knocking on your door in Sneinton. You wouldn't say no, would you? Les Brad wouldn't do it, Stell, because he was a Tory.
Really? Is that right?
It's a true story. Wow. Jack Dunnett, Labour MP, man of the people. I'm showing Paul Hawksworth listening to this. He'll be chortling away. So Jack had a Rolls Royce. Okay. So he used to come up in his Rolls Royce, driven by former player Alec Gibson. in the late 60s when he took over. And he'd drive around in the Rolls, except at election time. And the Rolls Royce would be stashed away in a garage, and there would be this battered old Ford Capri with like a tannoy stuck on top of the battered old Ford Capri. And some guy would be driving around with Jack in it going, vote Dunnett, vote Labour. No sign of the Rolls.
I tell you what, that's less about that. Contract negotiations would have been interesting then, wouldn't it? You've got a Labour chairman as an MP, and your centre forward, who's the club record scorer, is he a die-in-the-wool Conservative Tory? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, and another great story. Kevin Randall, who was a striker at the time, Jack was a brilliant negotiator. Terrible if you were the players. And obviously, at that time in the early 70s, players had no power at all, none at all. And so Jack would just say, that's what you're getting. There is no negotiation. So Kevin Randall was quite upset one time. And so he rang up Jack Dunnett, obviously in an era before mobile phones. And he's got some of the players listening in, and when he makes the call out of Meadow Lane on some payphone or something, and he rings up the House of Commons switchboard and asks, "Can I speak to Jack Dunnett, please?" And he got put through. And so Jack Dunnett's come out of a voting chamber. Dunnett here. He always should say Dunnett here. And so Kevin Randall, what are you ringing me here for? I want to put a transfer request in because I'm not happy with my the wage offer. So I want a transfer. And, I'm not discussing this anymore in the House of Commons. I'm on business. We'll speak about it when I come up on Friday.
Okay.
Oh dear, Jack Dunnett was a real character. I'm not quite sure how we got onto that, but yeah, the accusation of Jack was that he was always very tight with his money, which he was, but he spent a few quid. We signed John Chidozie for £450,000 in 1981. That's a lot of money then.
Well, it is, and like I say, the record sign, I think, isn't it, Tony O'Garner?
Yeah, that was a Derek Pavis one. That was a Derek Pavis.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but like I say, but still at them times, spending that money, they would still be fans questioning if we just spent a bit more. Even was it that comment? If we'd have signed Brian Deane as well, we'd have been mid-table. There's a lot of statements in football that do a lot of heavy carrying based on that word "if." Right. Yeah. And again, it never gets tested, does it? There's no way of proving or disproving any of these conversations or any of these comments that have "if" in them. But it's amazing over the years, isn't it? That when it used to be just a chairman or whatever, now it's owners. But yeah, we all see that if only they just spend a bit more money. They're all tight. Spending these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds. But could they just spend a bit more?
Yeah. Okay, we're done 50 odd minutes. Let's just get a bit onto Crawley. So back to the football. So we've had a bit of a break. Crawley are clearly hoovering up players like Wano. You're Martin Patterson. Have you been festering, for the last 10, 11 days as a result of Accrington?
I think he'll be simmering as a result of Accrington. I think he'll be ready to explode, ready for a game. I hope the players are as well. I'm sure they'll be the same. When you play badly and you get beat, then you want a game, to come quickly. Two postponements is not what Notts would have wanted. Now, in one aspect, you could go, do you know what? It might be exactly what we need, because you'd like to think come Saturday, we've got the likes of Matt Palmer fit again, maybe a Rod McDonald, I don't know, Scott Robertson, I don't know, see where they will be, and maybe one or two others will be further down the line to give him, Martin, a bit more of a selection headache in terms of, as we're talking about real starters, real tried and tested players to actually come in to start. So from that aspect, you can say it might be a positive, but to be left to stew on a poor performance and a home defeat, yeah, you'd like to think the players are just bubbling, ready to go at Crawley. And like I say, they've signed, I think, seven or more players, I think, but again, a few of them free transfers, free agent players, a few of them on the back of their fourth bottom of the table, so they need to do something. They've not won in 10 league matches, Crawley. They have not won in 10 league games, so they need to do something. So again, is this all part of a plan, or is there a little bit of desperation around the signings that they're making, we don't know. We'll wait and see. Um, and yeah, and a couple of familiar faces that he knows of. Like I say, the Clyde Lolos and Danilo Orsi, I think, are names that people might remember. That both play. Obviously, Orsi played at Maidenhead, didn't he? And scored against us in non-league before he went to Crawley, and scored a lot of goals in that season. They got promoted. Both of them played well. I think Lolos particularly was the one that looked good in that sort of withdrawn number 10 sort of position. Um, but again, that was then. And this is now 2 years on from that, different circumstances, different team they're coming back into. They're the team that's conceded the most goals in the division. So all is not well at Crawley. So that is maybe why they've been forced to go and try and do whatever they can to plug a few gaps and plug a few leaks. But you don't want Notts to be going down the desperation route. And I'm not for one second saying Crawley are desperate. They might have had these signings planned, but there is an element of desperation, it seems, about it, that they are just trying to, you know, change their run of form, which has been dreadful. And I watched Scott Lindsay's post-match interview after, well, it must have been after the Cheltenham game, the last game they got beat 3-0, and he looked at the end of his tether and he was sort of almost throwing a bit of a gauntlet down where he said something's got to change and it might be the owner's changed me. So I think there was a little bit of, I don't know how much longer they can continue going how they're going. So, interesting times. I think it'll be a much changed Crawley lineup that will play on Saturday. That's for sure. Obviously, weather permitting and the game actually going ahead. But it will be interesting to see, because there'll be a lot of new faces there. So it won't probably be a team that knows each other. So again, you can't dress it up any other way than say this is probably a good game for Notts, and they'll be desperate to get back out on the grass after having to fester on that Accrington result.
Does Martin Patterson ring the changes as well, or not after Accrington?
Yeah, I think he might. Yeah, I think he might. But the thing is that it's now sort of, it seems a lifetime ago, doesn't it? But it's long enough ago for maybe him to have had a look in training, right? Who looks good in training? What do I fancy? Who's back available again? I would imagine there'll be 2 or 3 changes from the Accrington game. But again, he's not one for wholesale changes, for no real reason. But the performance against Accrington means that pretty much anybody who doesn't play who did, you've not got a lot of complaint, to be honest. So hopefully with a couple of players back fit again and available, then it just ramps up a little bit of that competition for places. And like I say, training since then you'd like to think would be a proper tasty, I'm going to say, would have been a bit tasty, because there'll be players chomping for places to start. There'll be players worried that they're not going to start, and they'll know they'll have to be bang at it. And that's one thing I think that Martin has brought to the club, is that, we won't just brush a defeat or a couple of bad performances under the carpet. It gets looked at, analysed, and if you ain't right, if we don't have a response, then you won't like what you get from me, sort of thing. So I expect to see a response from Notts on Saturday. Like I say, fingers crossed that the game goes ahead.
A few of the flock have been watching the training clip. I think Martin organised an 11v11 on the Meadow Lane pitch. Andy Eastham says, good to see the skipper back. Always, he appears raring to go. Also, action of Will Jarvis, not been much of that so far this season. I think a lot of us would think Palmer would be coming back in still.
I would imagine so, if fit. I mean, absolutely. I think the skipper is probably the first name on the team sheet, when he's fit and properly right. So I would absolutely expect and hope he's available. And it's about what you do around him, and who you think he's going to be the player or the players that's going to get you the result down at Crawley.
Do you think, is there any chance that there's a real wild card that, maybe an Inoro is on the bench, something like that? Down the years, when Notts signed Ian McParland, who you would know, he got off a train from Edinburgh, I forget where, Preston, I think, and he was on the bench, and he had one sub in them days. He'd not even trained. Jimmy had watched him for I don't know how long, had him down a couple of times, signed him, picked him up from the station, put him on the back. No one had a clue who he was. Have those days gone now?
I don't think they've gone. No, I think, I say, it wouldn't surprise me to see both the lads on the bench that they brought in. I don't think, like I say, as much as I'm saying that they're a bit more with an eye towards maybe throughout the 2.5-year contract being a bit of a one for the future. that doesn't mean to say they're going to be a million miles away from the first team now. I do expect him to be part of the squad. And again, he might need some time to assess their fitness levels and where they're actually at as of this minute. But I would expect the likes of Anora as an attacking player. He's an option on the bench. We have been lacking an attacking option on the bench. And if he's got out and out pace, then you can say to him, look, 15 minutes, just if the situation calls for it, something different, go and offer a different threat. It was the Accrington game, wasn't it, where he put centre half up front, wasn't it? Lucas Ness. Yeah, for the last 2 or 3 minutes as like a plan B, C, whatever you want to call it. But again, that's because I think at times this season, he said it himself early on in the season, Martin, he looks behind him on the bench, and no matter where you try and cover every aspect, but we haven't had that many attackers or attacking options on the bench. Matty Dennis has been on the bench for nearly half of the season, but that's because he couldn't get in because we play one up top. Now he's been playing, in the last half dozen games or so. You look behind you, my Traore, unfortunately, it's just, like I say, not worked since he's come to the club, not managed to get that goal, and so he's not even making the bench at times. And outside of Jatta and Dennis, there is no other centre forward, out and out centre forward, goal scorer, whatever you want to call them. So you're looking at, where's my attacking option? What can I change? What can I do differently? And maybe Anora might just be that. He might just be that X factor. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the bench, made the 18. You might not see him. It depends on the game. Crawley's not the biggest pitch. It's quite tight down there. So again, maybe somebody with pace, it's not absolutely, the best sort of place for them. But depends how the game goes, and it depends how Crawley play. I think Scott Lindsay still plays a back three. He always played with wing backs. I think he likes that formation. So again, Martin will have a look at them in training. He'll get to see them for a few days, and he'll make that call, Thursday, Friday this week as to whether, I don't see either of them starting, but whether they get on the bench.
Final word from the flock from Stephen Smith, another Australia-based magpie. Morning from down under, he said. I'm just desperate to see a half-decent performance from Notts at 2 a.m. in the morning Australia time instead of the last few games. Well, I don't know whether you stay up late and then go to bed after the game, or whether you get up very early, Stephen. I don't really know how you do it, but anyway, I hope for your sake at 2 o'clock in the morning Australia time you do see a performance that either keeps you awake, keeps you awake, I suppose. Look, that's about it for tonight's show. Thank you, as always. Thanks to our official partners, JH Accountants, The Big Shed, Over the Road, and the Trent Navigation. I'll be back Friday with the Friday Night Magpie Live. I was checking with Stell. The BBC budget apparently does not extend to the BBC going down overnight to Crawley. I'm going down Friday, as much because the trains are all up the spout on Saturday. So I'm getting a lift back after the game. If you are doing the train, apparently there's 4 changes, 2 buses, and it's about 7.5 hours from Nottingham to Crawley. So good luck doing that. So I'm going down on the Friday evening. I've got a hotel, the Premier in Stell, £54. You can't grumble. It includes me breakfast. You can't grumble.
Including breakfast, is that? You cannot moan at that. You've got a January deal, have you? That's it. Beautiful.
I'm not sure how many people wish to stay in Premier Inns in Crawley on a Friday night in January. Obviously not many, judging by that price. No. But I shall be down there bright and early. If it's remotely dodgy, I will see if I can get into the ground and check the pitch out early doors.
Good. Yeah, well, you enjoy your breakfast. We'll be travelling. So we've got an early start, me and Adam. Yes. So we're all being well, the M25's playing ball, and we don't have any snow or frosts or anything like that between now and then, and hopefully the game goes ahead, because looking forward to it, and Notts need to get back to winning ways.
Indeed they do. Thank you one and all for your participation. Lots and lots of messages and participants tonight. See you Friday. Safe travels to Crawley on Saturday.
Yeah, cheers everybody, have a good week.